Welcome, everybody, to the pilot debut first episode of the Project Infinite podcast, a podcast that will cover the ever-expanding and infinite multiverse of content from DC to Marvel to Star Wars and everything in between. We hope to bring you some entertainment, some intelligence, some hot takes here and there. And my name is Rob. And I'm here with my friend Courtney. Courtney, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Excited. Just ready to talk about some comics, some movies, some TV, just all across the board, whether it be comic book movies or not. Just really want to display some little bit of knowledge, a little bit of fun, and just get some opinions and get a nice community going.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're all fans, man. And that's where the fun of it comes from, is the interaction with people that think like us, sometimes don't think like us. And that's the fun of it. And so how this is going to work, we're just going to start you with some quick bits of news that has happened over the past week. And then we're going to dive into a topic a little bit later. Hopefully by the time this is edited, I'll have timestamps and everything so you can jump around to what you want to hear about. So you got some news for us?
Yeah, man. So Suicide Squad, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad. 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. We've seen a lot of kind of reactions. They're saying this movie has a lot of heart, which I wouldn't expect anything else from James Gunn. You talk about a filmmaker that came off the Guardians of the Galaxy success, taking those lesser-known heroes and turning them really into kind of one of the main cells of the Marvel Universe as we know it today, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and just Marvel Comics as well. I know Donny Cates wrote a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy, and a lot of people were picking those issues up, having those characters you have for the Guardians of the Galaxy's movies and the actors behind them. Seeing him on DC side now, with these lesser-known characters, if you thought those Guardians of the Galaxy characters were unknown, those Suicide Squad characters that they're pulling out, even some characters I had no idea of until I kind of read the cast list as well. So really excited. Obviously take Rotten Tomatoes with a grain of salt.
Right. That's kind of what I was going to mention is I try not to put stock in these pre-screening kind of reviews because at the end of the day, people aren't going to bomb a movie before it comes out unless it's really, really awful. I feel like for these Marvel DC properties, the reviews are always usually pretty good before the actual release date. So, but at the same time, I do expect this to be pretty high quality for all the reasons that you mentioned. And I trust James Gunn to deliver much of what he delivered with Guardians of the Galaxy and then some, because it seems like Warner Brothers kind of gave him a lot of rope to make this movie.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a lot of interference on this one. This feels like a lot of James Gunn being James Gunn. And when you talk about that, that's a lot of heart at the center of the film. That's a lot of action. That's a lot of violence for an R rating you get for the Suicide Squad. So something where he can really run rampant and just play around a bit with these characters. I don't expect maybe 90% of them to be alive by the end of this film. So that's, I think, is a huge W. Kind of keep everybody on the edge of their seats, maybe fall in love with a character in 2 minutes, they're gone. So yeah, James Gunn being at the helm is really exciting. Starro is the main villain, it seems.
So goofy.
That's amazing. Giant kaiju in the sky raining down. It's Justice League's first villain in the comics. That's amazing that they kind of pulled that little Easter egg out for a film like this. So yeah, really excited to see that. Next up, we got Shang Chi a couple hours ago. On the 28th of July, just dropped its second big trailer. Smaller trailer, Yeah, smaller trailer, smaller big trailer. Just shows a little bit more of the Ten Rings. That's kind of the MacGuffin of this movie. Gonna be interesting to see him versus the real Mandarin, essentially.
Who we hope is the real Mandarin.
We hope so. What happens if they pull another seat from under us again?
Another reverse Mandarin.
Reverse Mandarin. That would be amazing.
Wong is the Mandarin.
Wong is the man. That's what. See, I told you he was doing something over those 5 years while Doctor Strange was gone. I want to think that Wong wasn't snapped, and he said, "You know what? I'm gonna get the Ten Rings back." So, no, just this film's gonna. This is the first of this kind of straight up hand to hand combat for a full movie. Gonna have a lot of fun with the Ten Rings, those action set pieces, the Madripoor cage fight. We might see the next appearance of the Abomination, it seems like, possibly Wong as well. So I'm definitely hyped for this one too.
Yeah, and I'm excited because this is the first real new thing, right, that Marvel's done since essentially Spider-Man No Way Home,
right,
or Far From Home. some type of home. He's homeless. Because we had Black Widow, then we had Scarlet Witch and WandaVision and Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which are all characters that are already established, right? So Shang-Chi is bringing something different, something new, a new hero to the MCU, and that's always exciting. And it's always interesting to see how they tackle another origin story, right? And I actually kind of like the comic bookiness of the titles that they're going with.
Oh yeah, Quantum Mania, The Legend of the Ten Rings. Yeah, they're really
Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse of Madness. Yeah. It shows you what you can do after you gain people's trust. I don't think anybody's looked at a Marvel title in some time and been, this is too outlandish, this is too comic booky. I think this is more inviting to get that kind of comic bookiness, if you will, in there.
And all these MCU movies really kind of fit their own subgenre within the superhero genre, right? So you've had your espionage films, you've had your sci-fi space western films, and now you're getting a tried and true, what appears to be like a martial arts film.
Right.
Kind of like an old school Martial West feel to it with a 2021 flair.
Right, kind of like that Bruce Lee era of...
Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping for.
That's where Shang-Chi kind of gets its origin from in the 70s, kind of the Bruce Lee era of this country, I would kind of say, and of the world.
Every kind of medium has to have a Bruce Lee prototype.
Right.
You see it in video games. Mortal Kombat, you had Liu Kang. Tekken had Law. So you have all these Bruce Lee kind of archetypes floating around through media. And Shang-Chi is no different.
Yeah, seemingly really seems lovable at this point. I think he's going to be akin to kind of when we got Chris Pratt as Star-Lord and Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther and also Tom Holland as Spider-Man, that character that kind of comes into the fold and that people really fall in love with, that get a big fandom after them as well. So hopefully, I've seen a lot of great moments from Shang-Chi in the comics, so hopefully he kind of gets that shine once September 3rd hits.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and we also got Michael B. Jordan. Now, this is a big one. He is being linked to a new Superman project where he might, big might, debut as Val-Zod. So the project itself is debuted. It's kind of going to be possible Earth 2 could deal with the Robert Pattinson movies. I can definitely see DC looking to that direction of considering that being Earth 2 and the Batfleck kind of being Earth 1. So would not be surprised if this Val-Zod crosses over with Robert Pattinson's Batman. But at the same time, I feel like that Robert Pattinson movie might distance itself from the...
I think so too.
From the bigger type of world building and those bigger type of characters, your Supermans, your Wonder Womans, your Flashes. So
yeah, I think DC is strongest when they don't try to connect things, honestly. We saw it with Aquaman, Shazam, kind of like the latest group of solo outings, Wonder Woman 84 aside, because that's admittedly not great. But I kind of like that they kind of steered away from the Justice League thing, aside from like the Snyder Cut, but that was more of like a reclamation project. So I'm kind of hoping that this and the Batman are kind of their own self-contained things. So do you know much about this Val-Zod character?
Not a lot. I know he is the Superman of Earth 2, and DC's track record of having continuity is they don't have the greatest. You go to Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Earths kind of collided back into one. They wanted to streamline their characters after that. You go to Convergence leading into the New 52, another reboot for them. So I know they've had a lot of times where there's multiple Earths. There's only Earth Prime. There's only Earth 1, 2, 3. So Val-Zod's going to be an interesting one. Having a black Superman in mainstream media is going to be really interesting to see how people receive that. I hope well, and as long it's not Clark Kent, so I don't think that should be received too poorly.
Right, but on top of that, we also have the J.J. Abrams led. Well, he's not directing, but he's producing another Superman movie that will not star Henry Cavill, so it's going to be a fresh start again. And the rumors are, I believe, maybe J.J. Abrams did confirm this, maybe not, but they are looking for a black lead to play Clark Kent, which is, I know it's going to be controversial because people just can't accept the fact that an alien from another planet in a fictional universe could be something other than white for some reason. So I'm looking forward to that too. I mean, Michael B. Jordan had been linked to that project before this announcement.
Right.
So I'm curious to see where the direction they go with that is.
Yeah, I mean, J.J. Abrams attached to this is definitely definitely a win, in my opinion. You get somebody that came off the success of Star Trek, kind of held those movies up a little bit. You get a couple great actors, Chris Pine, Benedict Cumberbatch, when you get to the second Star Trek movie. So definitely a name in Hollywood that people respect and trust. Star Wars, we're gonna assume that Star Wars has never existed in the universe that we're in. So we'll talk just Star Trek before he got to Force Awakens, which admittedly is not a bad movie as much as I think other people think it is. So
That's fair.
yeah, so speaking of all this DC news, a big name from DC is Zack Snyder. So Zack Snyder's Army of Thieves is set to debut soon as well, the direct sequel to Army of the Dead, the Netflix movie. This movie will also be on Netflix, and the sell is less zombies, more bank robbing. It looks like this is a British cast where the whatever virus or anything that's happened, the zombies are popping up in the Americas first, and it's prime ground for them to kind of run some heists, and it looks kind of fun. I thought Army of the Dead was a pretty solid film, a lot of fun. I don't think we give credit to movies being fun anymore. I think we really need to as well.
We look through it to a very like binary lens, right? Whether it's like good or bad.
Right.
Sometimes you just go to a movie to have fun with it. Right. I watched Fast 9 a week ago, and it's dumb, but whatever. It was 2 hours, and it was dumb and fun, and I laughed, and I feel like that's all you're supposed to do in a movie like that. So,
right, and then that last bit of news that I have is Ghostbusters Afterlife, a movie that's really kind of flew under the radar a bit, if I may say so. Definitely love that this new trailer just debuted yesterday, getting Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things fame, and getting Paul Rudd from MCU and
Paul Rudd fame.
Paul Rudd from Paul Rudd fame. Yeah. This movie's gonna be fun. It's definitely big connection to the overall Ghostbusters universe, which I never thought I'd have a Ghostbusters universe this big, but it looks like they're trying to push the envelope a bit.
Yeah,
and I couldn't be more
this
excited.
feels like the movie that they wanted to ultimately make, however long ago it was when they made the all-female Ghostbusters movie, which a lot of people crapped on. But this is a franchise that is kind of looking for a landing in a weird way because of all this age of sequels and reboots and remakes and 20-year sequels. Ghostbusters didn't really stick the landing. So now this feels like their opportunity to do that. Yeah. Kind of pass the baton from the old guard of the 80s to 2021.
Right, and from a filmmaking perspective, this feels a lot darker and a lot more, it feels a lot more kind of grounded as well in a universe that's pretty big up until this point. You kind of see they're in a small town with secrets that it appears one of the original Ghostbusters, it's their Finn Wolfhard's grandfather, essentially. And yeah, this movie just feels like a lot of heart, a lot of fun with Paul Rudd especially added to that cast, and just a lot of ambiguity in terms of kind of having this kind of bigger world trapped inside this small town. Let's see if that grows a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, I admittedly was not the biggest Ghostbusters fan growing up. It was a little bit before my time, and I was kind of raised on Star Wars, is where my kind of entry point started. So I was never really big on Ghostbusters. I know a lot of people are. I know it's huge, and I'm excited to see it. I definitely will go out to see it and refresh myself on the originals just to catch myself up on this. So, being that this is our first episode, it is our pilot episode, I thought a great topic would be best and worst pilots. You got Maverick. You got drunk Denzel Washington flying a plane. No, I'm kidding. We're going to go superhero TV pilots, just kind of back and forth on some of our favorites, some of the ones that we aren't so high on. So kick us off with something you got.
Yeah, I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of a hot button item in terms of pilots, coming off the back of the Avengers, the biggest movie at the world at that point. Just trying to fit back into a universe and trying to really kind of bring in that larger MCU into such a smaller project. I know it's primetime ABC, one of the biggest networks on television.
This was a big deal when it came out. Joss Whedon was doing it.
Right, and you can tell this show had big plans. It really felt like this show was going to be the first time we kind of week by week basis get a little taste of the MCU while we're waiting those months for the next film. So just a couple things about this pilot. Too much MCU, like we just said.
Spoilers, by the way,
Spoiler
for all
warning.
of this stuff, if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, go watch every pilot of every comic book TV show you can find and then come back and watch this episode. No, don't do that. But yeah, too much MCU, like we just said. It really tries to put you in that world, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, giving you that centipede, the Project Centipede, where it's every super serum that we can find, Extremis, Erskine's formula kind of mixed into a big pot of jambalaya.
They say Extremis a lot.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my god, Iron Man 3 happened.
Yeah, I think they said Extremis more in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pilot than they did in all of Iron Man 3. Don't quote me on that, but I want somebody to go out there and find it. But yeah, we have... surprise, Coulson's alive. Spoilers for episode 1, Coulson's alive. If there was no doubt. Yeah, one major win as well as Clark Gregg as Agent Coulson.
I agree.
He's really calm, reserved. He's all those qualities you want in your lead action star.
And he has perfect comedic timing.
Oh, yes, he does. He's very witty. Mm-hmm. He's extremely witty.
You saw a little bit in the Avengers and all his previous appearances in the MCU that he's very funny.
Right.
Very good at delivering banter, especially when it comes to like Loki in the Avengers.
Right. And one thing that I do like about him is he really kind of meshes with every person on the team. He has personal stake in everybody. He even goes down to the level of understanding. He says Fitz and Simmons, they're kids. And nerds. He really understands nerds, kids. They're kid nerds. They're the Stranger Things cast. But no, he really kind of connects with everybody. He gives everybody purpose. He brings Sky in later on, and he really adopts everybody onto this little family, essentially, because he did die, and this was his chance. He's been an agent since he was out of the military, I believe we learned in Captain Marvel or in one of the episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So he really is somebody that is a likable character. What's not likable as much for me is the weird shaky cam action that they have multiple times in the episode throughout the first season. It starts to tail off a little bit. I believe in season 3, there's a really good action set piece with Sky, later known as Daisy, where it's a one-shot take and she's just clearing out a Hydra agents. But before that era, we had that shaky cam era. It was a lot of stick the camera on the car, have them drive, and it just looked almost like a GoPro was going. And for a show with that type of budget at the time, I really wish they kind of would have taken the time to really hire some people with some real knowledge on how to kind of get action mixed in on a smaller scale too.
Yeah, I'm not as high on this pilot just because of a few of the reasons that you said, but the MCU real thing, it just really feels like it weighs this thing down. And you get the Sam Jackson cameo at the end of the episode, which they probably paid him millions and millions of dollars to do because they want to be like, this is in the MCU.
That's where the action budget went to. It went right to Sam Jackson's pocket.
Yeah. And I just think this show is better off when it's not tied down to the MCU. And you kind of see that payoff in later seasons. And this pilot is just kind of cookie cutter, to be honest with you. Not a lot of interesting things happen. You have your cookie cutter protagonist that we already know from the movies, and then you have your cookie cutter team.
Right. And speaking of that cookie cutter team, Agent Grant Ward, I love in later episodes they start to make fun of his name a little bit and just the way he talks, but you can't get a more clear-cut protagonist on that team than
handsome
Grant
guy.
Ward.
You need your handsome guy.
Jawline. I think when they draw Batman or Superman, they just take a picture of Grant Ward and they just kind of pin him up and they kind of draw it. But
that guy could have been the lead actor in any show that we're probably going to talk about besides Black Lightning.
That would have been controversial.
Yeah. But that guy, man, there's really nothing to him in the pilot. He's just kind of the best at everything guy.
Yeah, he's by the books. He's really, really simple in terms of the mission. And that's where that conflict is kind of built later on. But just in terms of the pilot, like you said, he's very by the books. He's very normal. Nothing to this man besides I am an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I am here to
look at me,
kill the enemy.
Look how great I am.
Yeah. Ming-Na Wen. I hope she gets a lifetime. She is an absolute legend. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Mulan, Star Wars nowadays. She has no emotion in this pilot.
That's great.
It's amazing. It works the best out of anybody because she is clear cut about one thing, and that she's about that action. I would never fight her. There's a short list of characters I think I might be able to hold my own for a short. It's not her. I would never fight her.
No
version of her. No Mulan or no Fennec Shan.
No. Ming-Na Wen is a stone cold killer and everything. Then you have the nerds. Gotta have your nerds. Usually there's only one nerd, though. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gives us two nerds, which is fun.
Fitz and Simmons. They're very they're so annoying to the point where you know they're going to be likable.
And it was very nice of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. crew to give us the ship name of these two characters before people started shipping them together.
Right. It's almost like they knew.
Yeah. They're just your generic nerds with accents, which is great.
Yeah. I kind of like them. I like them for the pilot. For a pilot that I don't love so much, I do like them for the pilot. I like this whole team. The team itself is fine. This is a team where you know they can grow.
It's a team that works.
Right.
It's a team that every other show does.
Right. And in terms
to varying degrees.
Right. In terms of fandoms, it's somebody can kind of latch onto each character. You can probably go on Tumblr and each character will have a full page.
Tumblr? How old are you, bro?
Oh, I'm old. But each character will have, like, you go anywhere, they'll have full pages dedicated to them. And the pilot really sets that up. That's actually something that's really good about the pilot. It sets each character up on a path, and you can feel the conflict. Each character kind of conflicts with each other's ideals, their thoughts on the world at the time, how they should deal. Should it be through force or should it be through science?
But the problem with that is they don't really explore that till way later.
Right.
Because it's so bogged down in being in the MCU.
Right.
You know, you have cameos from characters in the movies, and it's working so hard to be part of that universe that it really handcuffs the storytelling.
Right.
And where you see the character shine is in later seasons. And I know a lot of people dropped off of that show.
After season 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, once you get to season 2 and beyond, that show turns into, you get Ghost Rider, you get the
awesome Ghost Rider,
reformation of S.H.I.E.L.D. You get to season 5, you get the Kree, something I never thought we would see on a small screen without any type of Captain Marvel show. So this show really turns on the jets after season 1, but if you can get through season 1, you get to the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's where that show kind of starts to pick up.
Yeah, I will say that's kind of where being connected to the MCU helped it, is in the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the reveal that, spoiler alert, Agent Handsome is a Hydra agent.
No.
So yeah, Grant Ward ends up being part of Hydra, and he ends up being a really compelling villain for a while there.
He's sort of the Loki, in a sense, where he's always back. There's times where he's bad, and there's times where he's not so bad. He's kind of willing to help them to get his own personal gain. He has emotions still. He still has some traits that are somewhat likable out of your villain, where you kind of question if they are really the biggest bad that they can be, which he is not. He is not.
Yeah, so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pilot, I'm not a fan, but I do recommend the series as a whole. I know it's a tough sell, because the pilot's supposed to be the one that sells you on the series. But yeah, I guess I'll keep the negative train going and go with a pilot that I don't like, and it's going to be another Marvel show. It's going to be Iron Fist. Hate it.
Marvel Netflix, baby.
Hate the pilot of Iron Fist. He doesn't do any Iron Fist stuff. Like, what's the deal? You're supposed to watch a pilot to watch this burdening hero become a hero.
Right.
And you got to see what he can do. And Danny Rand doesn't do anything in this pilot. He fights a couple guys in a lobby.
Does he have shoes on, or does he not have shoes on?
He does not have shoes on. He's like a wandering monk because his parents died in a plane crash and he was gone for 15 years?
Something around that.
But none of that really is explored. You just get into a boardroom with his estranged friends / sort of siblings, and they hash out Rand Enterprises, and then he gets put in a mental asylum.
Right.
The episode ends.
Yeah, the acting's not great in that episode. I found myself really bored and not invested, especially...
Bored. I'm not supposed to be bored in an Iron Fist show.
Yeah, especially when the Meachums kind of get introduced. It really feels like a soap opera of that, on that aspect of you're in a boardroom, you're dealing with family drama of rich people in a penthouse, and I just could not care less at that point. And just the biggest thing goes down to the actual Iron Fist. I feel no Iron Fist. And this could be direction-wise, this could be the main character not really loving Iron Fist as much as some of us do, which is fine. Your actors don't need to love their characters when they portray them, but there really doesn't feel like there's any love for the character of Iron Fist from anybody on this set from that pilot. Like you said, you never see the fist glow in the first episode, and that's your sell of your character. His name is the Iron Fist, and he doesn't
The Immortal Iron Fist.
The Immortal Iron Fist. And he will let you know that he is the Immortal Iron Fist.
Later on, yeah. Yes, that show does not get any better, by the way. It doesn't. Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gets better, Iron Fist does not get better. It gets a little better in season 2.
Yeah. The best part of season 2, I think, was the fight with him and Luke Cage. That was a great fight. But that really sells the core of what those two characters are, what Iron Fist is and what Luke Cage is. And the Iron Fist pilot, like I said, just doesn't show that. That's where it really falls.
All right, let's get a little more positive here. So what about one that you do like?
Me personally, Daredevil.
I knew you were going to say Daredevil.
How did you know?
I knew it.
Daredevil.
No, go ahead. Talk about Daredevil.
Yeah. So this one's going to start Ben Affleck from 2003.
No.
Oh, let me look
Not
through my
that
notes.
Daredevil.
Oh, wrong Daredevil. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Daredevil with Charlie Cox. I cannot say enough about this show. This show it's in a weird spot, right? You're coming off of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a little bit, and there's this expectation almost that this show has one of your most famous street level heroes outside of Spider-Man from the Marvel Universe, and you're kind of bearing the weight of Ben Affleck's Daredevil as well, and we don't know how this is going to be received. It could be a little bit weird seeing his power set on live action. Daredevil, the movie, wasn't great in terms of showing kind of the echolocation and how he can hear, smell.
He can see.
He can kind of see. That's one of his powers, but...
Can you see, Matt? Can you see how many fingers I'm holding up?
Then he just hits him because it's Daredevil. But yeah, this show is brutal. This is a very brutal show, and it lets you know out of the gate. This show wastes no time setting up its protagonist. It wastes no time getting you into the world. It just shows you kind of the hero awakening when he was a kid. That's a great opening scene to show him pushing that old man out of the way and getting the chemicals in his eyes.
And I love that they do the origin story in like 25 seconds.
Right.
He pushes the old man out of the road, the chemicals get spilled, oh my god, he's blind, and then he wakes up and he's an adult now. Great. Good. Right. That's how all superhero origins should be from now on. I don't need to see Batman's parents getting gunned down for 20 minutes. I don't need to see Uncle Ben getting gunned down. Why are all parents getting gunned down?
Makes you a better hero. His father also dies in this pilot.
Yeah, he gets gunned down.
Yeah, tough. Makes you a better hero, though.
Yeah, you gotta have dead parents.
Yeah,
or dead relatives, whatever the case is.
No, but this...
I was supposed to say, are you done? You can't be done.
Yeah, I can't. I'll go for 3 hours talking about this show, but...
We don't have 3 hours.
I'll make 3 hours for Daredevil. For Charlie Cox, the world.
Daredevil spinoff podcast. You by yourself just talking about Daredevil.
Every week.
Episode by episode.
Weeknights at 8. But yeah, just Charlie Cox himself. This man is the epitome of what casting should be. And not in terms of you look like the comic book character, but just that portrayal. He's suave, he's smooth. When he's Matt Murdock in the daytime, he understands he's blind, and he doesn't really let that affect him to the way that some other filmmakers, some other choices might kind of look at him and be like, we really need to play up that he's blind. He has the walking stick, he has his glasses on, and that's it. Foggy, some people help him, Foggy helps him, and there's just these little cues in the pilot as well. I love how they present the world on fire take to him kind of seeing the world, his eyes are really burning at all times, and it kind of plays on that devil trope of him being the devil of Hell's Kitchen. So yeah, Charlie Cox really he has these little head shakes as well. His head kind of slightly moves. It's just those little things that really kind of play up the character of Daredevil and just really give him some staying power in the MCU at that ground level where people were kind of unsure how this universe would kind of play out.
And it does exactly what Iron Fist doesn't do. The action is great. He immediately jumps in there, beats up the villains, the Russians.
It was the Russians and Turk.
Classic villains, the Russians. Great villains. Anytime you can get a Russian as a villain,
right,
you got something going. And he just kicks the crap out of these guys.
Yeah, he pulls no punches. The show as a whole pulls no punches. And they make that evident very early in the pilot as well. Seeing him at the shipyard, just kind of, he's handling them. And
he takes his, though.
Yeah, he does. And that's one thing that's also great about this whole show, is he's not as glamorous as everybody else. He is getting hit. I think he jokes that it's because he's Catholic, he knows how to take a beating. But this show as a whole just really shows you what we can really do with these superhero shows. They don't have to be these really big budget, these huge, massive space epics, or these we need to defeat the villain by the end, or the world's going to explode. It really is, there's crime in New York, and somebody's going to step up and take care of it, whether it be something that's out of his control or in his control. That's really what a hero is. They're going to kind of take that onto their shoulders and fight till the end of the day.
Great music, too.
Great music. That intro music is saved on my phone right now.
Yeah, Daredevil is fantastic. It's really kind of the standard bearer for what makes a good pilot, in my opinion. So I'm going to jump over to one that I like. I'm going to skip universes to the DC universe, and I'm going to go to Arrow, which is, in my opinion, kind of the godfather of superhero TV in general. Smallville aside, Smallville kind of set the standard and then ended.
Right.
And then nobody really knew where to go.
Right.
And then DC, CW was like, we're going to make a TV show about the Green Arrow. And people were like, what? But I think the Arrow pilot is fantastic. It immediately establishes itself as separate from the Green Arrow that people, I think, identified with. Kind of this Robin Hood, goofy, Pied Piper looking guy with a bow and arrow.
In comic, Oliver Queen is very funny. Mm-hmm. He's a real comic relief type of character for the rest of the Justice League when he's on his own, because he's not really in the Justice League as much as your Green Lanterns, your Flashes. But TV show Oliver Queen, he's not. Problem. He is a problem. He's not fun. He is not a fun person. It's fun to watch him fight, though.
Yeah, and I wanted to get to that. Within like 10, 15 minutes of this pilot, he snaps a man's neck because he takes his identity so seriously, and nobody can know my secret, as he says, and he snaps a man's neck. He kills a handful of people in this first episode with his hands, with the bow, and he kind of immediately, they give this overhaul to the Green Arrow character where he's this kind of Batman adjacent, which I know a lot of people joke about, but it's true. They do draw a lot of inspiration from Batman with he's kind of tortured instead of being this kind of goofy, carefree billionaire. He's this tortured guy who has been through a lot, and they pioneer this use of flashback in Arrow where you kind of see what he's going through on the island in spurts, and then it catches up to the present day and it intersperses, and it does that for 5 seasons, and that was a really unique trick at the time. And I don't know, man, I just really like this pilot. I think the music cues are great, the action is great for budget TV.
Right.
The fight scenes are spectacular. He does a lot of his own stunts. A lot of gratuitous Oliver Queen shirtless scenes to kind of capture the female audience, I guess, at the time, is what they were trying to do. They get their mainstream music in there. You can tell it's in like a late 2000s show. Like it shows. But as far as ushering in this new era of superhero TV, not just from the DC side, but Marvel wasn't doing a ton either.
No. Especially on the TV side, their movies were their sell, and I feel like their next evolution was TV, and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pilot didn't carry the weight that it was supposed to. Mm-hmm. This Arrow finale takes a hero in his prime, which we didn't get with Smallville. We saw a kind of Metropolis Superman as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, which is fine. But in terms of seeing your hero in his prime, fighting his biggest badge, your Deathstrokes, your Merlins, we really see that kind of come to fruition. And this pilot really shows that Oliver Queen is not to be messed with. Even Diggle himself, he kind of knows that this man is on a mission. I don't believe you know that is Diggle in the pilot?
He is, because he gets employed after Oliver and Tommy Merlin are attacked, and his mom is like, "Here's your bodyguard."
I love the previous bodyguard, or I think the one he had after, where he just jumps out of the car and he's like, "I'm fired."
Yeah, and hey, it gives us John Diggle, who is an original character for this TV show, who I believe has made his way into some Green Arrow comics.
I believe so. I can't remember if Felicity as well. I know this is after the pilot, but just in terms of getting a character fresh for the screen, being brought back into the comics, that's awesome.
Yeah, Arrow does a lot for kind of the makeover of Green Arrow in the comics. I mentioned the costume earlier. Green Arrow in the comics now will rarely be seen without the hood.
Yeah. And the island stuff, which is a big part of the show, comes from, you see it in the Jeff Lemire comics as well. He's on that island, and you kind of see a lot of these villains from the TV show kind of bleed back in. Felicity has a bigger role in some of the Green Arrow comics, where, as if this show never existed, that would never be the case. You would never see John Diggle. Not too sure if he is in some of the newer ones. He might be, but you would never see that without this TV show, and that just shows you the success of this CW verse, later known to be as the Arrowverse.
Yeah, and I don't mean to kind of set you up and force you to talk about another show, but I'm going to force you to talk about another show because I think it's a great segue, and The Flash.
Yeah, I remember specifically the Flash debut. I was getting back into comics, and I remember hearing about this, and we talk about the big three with DC a lot. You have your Batman, your Superman, your Wonder Woman, but the Flash has a lot of people's desired power, and that's speed. And I think this show handles it really well.
It's good TV speed.
Yeah, it is. It is great TV speed. And I love the progression as well. He starts out relatively slow. You don't even see him with lightning until the last scene. So it's really cool. I think you might see him in the Speed Lab running a little bit with lightning, but he develops it as it goes on. But this show really is carried by Grant Gustin, and that whole cast is great, man. Grant Gustin. You have Cisco as well. He is just...
Carlos Valdez.
Yeah, Carlos Valdez is great. He's just so much... He just really plays that best friend with a little bit of more heart on it as well. And he's just...
Also got the nerds.
Yeah, two nerds, which debuted in Arrow as well. And talking about debuting in Arrow, setting up Barry Allen in Arrow was a great choice.
Amazing. Something that totally came out of nowhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, you do like the Leonardo DiCaprio thing.
Yeah.
When Grant Gustin pops in, he's like, "I'm Barry Allen." Yeah. You're like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, that's Barry Allen. Yeah, and it's crazy to see characters like that in a show with a character like the Arrow or Green Arrow that's on the outskirts of the Justice League in the comics. Like, that's not as big as your Supermans, your Batmans.
And when he's introduced in Arrow, he's a pre-Flash Barry Allen.
You see the incident in that episode of Arrow season 2. You do see the incident which turns him into the Flash, but at the
time you were like, whoa, like, what's gonna happen? Like, is he gonna become the Flash? Are we gonna actually see him in the red suit and everything?
Imagine he died. Now that would have been funny. It wouldn't have been funny, but it would have been weird.
Next episode, Arrow is like, yeah, Barry got struck by lightning and he just never woke up.
Yeah, and then the Arrowverse would just die right there.
It was like, good.
He was ready to kill him in that episode too of Arrow. He was ready to kill that.
Speaking of Oliver Queen, we get a gratuitous Oliver Queen cameo in the Flash pilot.
Right, and it's just that trope of that hero's journey that he sets him on, telling him about the mask, giving him just kind of that motivation why he does what he does.
I like the dynamic of them too in that Flash pilot, because Barry's like, I want to be a hero, Oliver, and Oliver's like, I'm not a hero.
Yeah.
I have killed. I don't do good work. I try to protect my city, but the cops are always after me, and my life sucks,
right,
Barry, and you can be better than me. And that's really what sets the two shows apart, like right in that moment between the two of them, where you kind of see like sunny, cheerful Barry Allen, who has his problems. Right. His dad murdered his mom.
Yeah. Oh, just so we're clear, Barry Allen's father murdered his mother. I don't care what the show or what any comic tells you. We are firm believers that Henry Allen should be in a jail cell right now, to this day.
Yeah. And then, speaking of villains, you get Tom Cavanaugh.
Might be the best.
Who might be the villain. We don't know.
Oh,
the pilot.
Sorry. Spoilers. He may or may not be the villain of this whole show, but he just brings... that when we talk about ominous, he is the definition of it. And he's a very good leader as well. He's a very great motivator. That run, Barry, run line is just etched in stone, I think, amongst superhero media. But yeah, he kind of is this little bit, he's a father figure to Barry as well when his father's incarcerated, somebody that he can go to for advice. So spoilers, if he is the villain, when that rug gets pulled from under him, it's a really big punch. It's predictable, but not a bad predictable. It's just something that you don't really expect that much of an emotional punch to yourself.
Yeah, and they set that all up in the pilot. I mean, you can kind of see Barry attach himself to Tom Cavanaugh's Harrison Wells. And he's like, this is my mentor. This is my new dad. While my real dad is in prison. And they have a great dynamic. You don't get a lot of in the Flash pilot is a lot from Caitlin Snow, which is a little disappointing because she's kind of, aside from Iris, the only female lead.
Right.
And they don't give her a ton to do. Like, she's kind of just brooding.
Yeah.
Over like the whole episode. Over Ronnie Raymond, yeah. Her fiance who was killed in the inciting incident. Or is he? I'm raising my eyebrows. You can't see, but I'm raising them. But no, I think both the Flash and Arrow pilot are really great. And it kind of established this quote-unquote Arrowverse. Which brings me to Legends of Tomorrow. Another spin-off. This Arrow thing just does not stop.
No, it doesn't.
So Legends of Tomorrow is, hey, let's take a bunch of minor characters from these other shows and stick them together and see what happens. And I really love the pilot of Legends of Tomorrow, too. Once again, gratuitous Oliver Queen cameo.
Yeah.
He is the fourth character, I counted. He's the fourth character you see in this pilot. You see Vandal Savage first, who is the villain, who is presented really well in this pilot as like a mortal menace, which is what he is.
Menace is the perfect word.
Oh, he's a cackling, evil, just scum.
All-around bad guy.
Yeah, you
he's
just
not
don't
even
like
the
him.
bad guy, he's a bad guy.
He's not even a bad guy that has like charisma. He just sucks.
He's a bad person.
Yeah, he just sucks.
Just threw himself onto Kendra in the crossover. Not physically, but yeah.
Speaking of Kendra, Hawkman and Hawkgirl are in this, and I hate them both. They both are terrible in this. It's a lot of flat kind of acting from both of those individuals.
Yeah, there's no layers to anything they're saying. It's so clear, cut, and dry that Connors, we need to go with Vandal Savage. We need to go with Rip Hunter to kill Vandal Savage. And Kendra's, I'm a barista. I don't know if this is the path for me. And there's nothing beyond that. And I think that's where they suffer a bit. Yeah. But somebody that does not suffer one bit is Rip Hunter, my personal favorite character.
You're gonna die on this Rip Hunter hill.
Yes, I will. From this show, he is charismatic. He's a liar. He's great.
Hey, he lies in the first episode. He lies
a lot. But you can tell he has reason for everything that he does. And he's somebody where you can kind of cling on to him in terms of he's got that tragic backstory down. But you talk about hero tragic backstories, he's got a good one.
He's got a
great
trench coat.
He's got a trench coat. He's got a laser gun.
Laser revolver. Not just a laser gun.
Revolver. This is like Red Dead Redemption 2049. It's great.
But I think Head and Shoulders, kind of the two most compelling characters are that of Sarah Lance and Leonard Snart. Captain Cold, boy, Wentworth Miller, man, just amazing.
Give that guy an Emmy.
God, from the episode of The Flash that he appears in as Captain Cold, it is evident right away that this guy is brilliant as Captain Cold. He is hammy. He is like a cackling lunatic. Not even a lunatic. He's smart.
Yeah, he is. He's very smart.
He's cold.
He is.
You know?
I see what you did there.
But I think in Legends of Tomorrow, he really gets to shine. And he gets to shine. Sarah Lance gets to shine. Ray Palmer gets a lot of play in Legends of Tomorrow. I mentioned Oliver Queen being the fourth character to appear. Ray Palmer's the third character that appears. And I think Brandon Routh is fantastic as Ray Palmer. Kind of this just lovable, humble, affable kind of like Grant Ward. He's kind of like the cookie cutter, square jawed kind of good guy.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because he was Superman at one point.
And that's what the show is. It allows these characters to get some shine. Before Guardians of the Galaxy, essentially, I believe, was this after? This might have been after. But in terms of kind of giving these smaller characters that are already established in the universe, give some credit to Arrow and the Flash, having a little bit of a fan base behind them and fans wanting more, they definitely gave them more. And then Rip Hunter
show's still going, man.
Yeah, it is. It's the Arrow's done. Flash, it seems like, might be on its last leg, but it looks like Legends of Tomorrow still has a little bit left to give. And it makes sense for the premise of the show, which is time travel. That's the big sell of the show.
It's constant reinvention.
Yes, it is. This show feels different season to season, but from the pilot, this pilot's a little darker than I thought it would be.
Very dark.
Yeah, I thought this would be a little bit more fun, especially with the characters that you were bringing over. You're bringing over the Atom, who is a shrinking character. You're bringing over characters that literally have a freeze gun and a heat gun. And this is pretty dark, man. Vandal Savage, and a lot of that's due to Vandal Savage being your main villain. And Hawkman and Hawkgirl being killed every time they see him is
like the Kennys of the DC universe.
Oh my god!
I think Kendra puts an actual total on it. She's like, he's killed us 400 some odd times, and she's like, I'm not excited to make it 400 and next number. And he's like, well, we got to do this. We got to kill him, even though we've never killed him before. My favorite part of that pilot is Rip Hunter being like, guys, we got to stop Vandal Savage, and Hawkman is like, we killed him. Green Arrow and Flash helped. And Rip Hunter was like, well, you guys got to kill him. And you just see this look on Hawkman's face where he's like, oh God.
Yeah, he was nervous. He was stressed out that whole series until he died in the first episode.
Second episode.
Oh, was it the second episode?
He makes it out of pilot part 1 and makes it into pilot part 2. And
does that count as one pilot? Can we just count the first 2 episodes as one?
I guess technically, because that's how they're named.
I just want that so I can say that Hawkman died in the first pilot of the show. So
He's stabbed very unceremoniously by Vandal Savage.
yeah, tough look for him because he thought he was just all that in a bag of chips.
That's the other thing that annoyed me about that guy.
He loved himself, I think. I think he loved himself more than he loved Kendra.
He was like, I remember everything about ancient Egypt and you don't remember anything, idiot. Catch up. Catch up to my memories.
Yeah, and I thought that was the point, Hawkman, so you can relax a bit. But yeah, man, this is pretty high on my list in terms of
I was surprised.
Pilots. Yeah.
Going back and I've watched over a few of these pilots, and I was surprised at how much I like the Legends one.
Yeah, man. It's good stuff. Like I said, having Rip Hunter kind of be that Coulson, essentially, of bringing a team together of people that don't really know what the mission will be, essentially, is really well played. And yeah, Sarah Lance being essentially your last character that we haven't talked about. She died a couple times. Once.
Yeah.
More than once? Once?
I mean, if you count the boat, technically twice.
Yeah.
Because she died on the boat, and then she got chucked off her roof.
That was tough. Thanks a lot, Thea. Spoilers, but...
Yeah. I think that's all I got to say about Legends, so...
Yeah, man. Another pilot I think that's not so great is The Defenders, if we go back to the Netflix.
You're bringing me back to Iron Fist.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Luke Cage and Punisher and Jessica Jones, but might as well just go for the team up. We've done two team ups. We've done Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We've done Legends. Might as well go to the third one. And this one is not great. Not great at all. This kind of plays a little bit on Charlie Cox kind of being more likable. I think if I was to rank them, it would be Charlie Cox and then 72 spaces, and then Luke Cage, and then Jessica Jones, and then 704 spaces, and then you get to Iron Fist. But
it's disappointing because Jessica Jones, I think, is really great. Luke Cage is pretty good. Great.
The first 6 episodes of season 1 were before Mahershala Ali was killed, before Cottonmouth was killed. That show was great, and then it kind of tailed, but still
The Defenders, it feels like watching that first episode, you don't want to see anybody other than Matt Murdock.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Yeah, and what a lot of that plays off of is this was a direct sequel to the end of Iron Fist, essentially. It was a little bit of Daredevil, but this pulled mostly from Iron Fist, especially them being in this building, them having to do with the 7 cities, the characters, the villains that they had, Nobu also. This whole thing was predicated on Iron Fist being successful. It wasn't, and you kind of see why that character did not work, and it just bleeds too much into Defenders. Mike Coulter can't save it as Luke Cage. Jessica Jones can't save it, and sad enough to say, Charlie Cox couldn't even save this.
No, I mean, Stick calls Iron Fist a blundering idiot at one point, and you're like, yeah, he is.
He is. You don't need to announce yourself as the immortal Iron Fist if your fist only glows for about 1% of the show.
But it does have a couple fun Iron Fist moments, both coincidentally having to do with Luke Cage, which I don't know why that is, but those two guys on screen together works.
But that's going back to comics. That's the Heroes for Hire thing. It works. Like I said earlier, the fight scene in season 2 of Luke Cage where Danny Rand makes his kind of cameo appearance, full episode appearance. It's the best episode of season 2 for a reason, because they bog it down with too many kind of outside things, these drama elements, when in all actuality, I think we're all really asking for is Iron Fist and Luke Cage back to back, just whooping people.
Which you get the Defenders.
Which you get.
They storm, what is that place called? Midland Circle.
Yeah.
And they're kind of the first two in the building. And Matt Murdock and Jessica Jones are kind of playing catch up.
Right.
And Danny Rand and Luke Cage fight like a boardroom full of guys in suits. And they have guns. And they work really well off each other.
Yeah.
And the other moment I really like is when they first meet. And it's literally the immovable... irresistible force and immovable object.
Right.
You have Luke Cage, the bulletproof man, and you have Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, and they kind of come to blows. And you never really see Luke Cage get hurt up until that point, other than like magic bullets.
Or a needle to the eye.
Yeah, or a needle to the eye.
Yeah.
But Danny Rand powers up that Iron Fist and freaking cracks Luke Cage, and you're like, holy crap.
Just give us more of that.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
But we don't. And that's what makes the Defenders ultimately disappointing.
Right, and that doesn't happen until a later episode that's not in the pilot. So that's, if there's one thing to say about this pilot, it's slow. It is so slow with characters that are already established. So, yeah, having Charlie Cox there, like I said...
Those are the best parts of that whole pilot, is when it switches over to the Daredevil stuff, and you're like, yay, a character that I really like.
And it's not even necessarily well-written. It's just the fact that it is Daredevil that we get excited about, but that can't save a team-up show. You don't look at the Avengers and say, well, Iron Man by far is carrying this, but I don't like the rest of the characters. The movie would not be successful, and that just applies to this show.
And then I guess this will be like the last one I talk about, and I'm going to jump back over to the Arrowverse. It does have a lot to do with the Arrowverse, though, and that's Black Lightning. I'll give the DC TV universe credit insofar that they really go for these lesser-known characters. Green Arrow, not so much the Flash, but the entire Legends of Tomorrow cast, Stargirl, Swamp Thing, just these characters that are kind of lesser known. And they took a swing with Black Lightning. They were like, hey, we're doing this. It's not connected to the Arrowverse. It does get connected later on, but as presented, it doesn't start connected to the Arrowverse. And I just really like it. It's so much different than the other shows. Cress Williams as Jefferson Pierce, aka Black Lightning, is immediately likable. He's real. He's grounded. He feels like an actual person. And you see him in a stage that you don't see a lot of these characters in any of these TV shows, insofar that he had been retired for 9 years before this show takes place. He went through the hero life. It broke apart his family, his marriage, and he was just like, I'm done. And then Inciting Incident and Black Lightning's back, as the title song goes.
But yeah, I think the number one thing you said from that is grounded. This show doesn't kind of pull... I think a lot in Arrow, Oliver Queen can feel like this entity almost, where he's kind of larger than life.
He's like an enigma.
Yeah, he is. He's bigger than everybody else, and where he's the hood of the city, but...
He can literally stop the screen, basically.
Right.
Whether he's Oliver Queen or whether he's the Arrow, it almost is like when he gets on screen, everyone's like...
Right.
Whoa, and it's Oliver Queen.
A lot of that Oliver Queen comes from being the rich guy, penthouses, mansions. Cress Williams is living in the suburbs with 2 girls, and he's a principal of a high school.
I love those interactions with him and the kids at Garfield High School in that pilot episode.
It gives you some hope. It gives you a lot of hope, and you can tell the show really took some time to think about kids in that situation in an inner city, kind of dealing with these outside forces, maybe kind of
gang violence,
police
brutality. Yeah, it tackles a lot of really relevant topics, and not in a heavy-handed way.
No.
I don't think. I mean, maybe you can speak to that more than I can, as far as like how seeing that stuff represented like kind of made you feel.
Yeah,
but to me, it didn't seem heavy-handed.
No, I like when the scene did happen, the police brutality scene. You can kind of get behind Jefferson's lens, step into his shoes and kind of feel kind of just that fear and especially that anger. He kind of lights up, and it's not necessarily that he's a hothead, but you see that it's just the unfairness that it kind of presents, and it can happen to anybody. He is a superhero. Oliver Queen's a superhero, but Oliver Queen won't have to deal with that. Cress Williams as Black Lightning, Jefferson Pierce will have to deal with that from time to time. Just got that right out of the way in the pilot, and it kind of grows his character a little bit and why he does what he does. And then I just think of him being the principal of that school plays really well. His alter ego is perfect for having a character like that.
Like just seeing him walk through the halls, and he's like saying like little things here and there to like the students, where he's like, "Hey, better be doing your homework." It's better written than that, but it's to that effect. And you see like this is a guy who's loved in his community.
Right, and it plays well, man. His daughters as well.
The cast is great.
The cast is really
James
good. James
Remar is in this.
Oof. They did not pull any punches. Speaking of pulling punches, they did not pull any punches from this music budget.
It's amazing. The music's amazing. And then what this does that, say, the Iron Fist thing doesn't do is this whole episode, he's kind of teasing like his powers. He uses them at one point to clear out a club, but he does it in the dark.
Right. And he might use it on somebody, but it's just, like you said, to darken the club. It's not really, he's full out fighting anybody yet.
But then his daughters are kidnapped, and he's like, I'm back. he gets a new suit and he's Black Lightning, and that last scene where he fights the gangsters from the 100 is amazing. It's such a good fight scene. He's brutal, much like the Arrow kind of premiere.
He's got that Dark Knight Returns mentality a little bit, but not so kind of...
He does retired Batman better than Batman does.
Don't talk about Ben Affleck like that. But no, definitely. Like I said, he kind of plays on that older superhero really well, where he understands, he knows his power levels. He knows that already. He knows what the city's worst can bring. Maybe not. Maybe we see a little bit more, but he's been through it all. And bringing him back into the fold after his life experiences, he was an Olympian, I believe. He's a scholar. He's a smart man. And just bringing him as a school principal that really just wants to see his community prosper makes him a hero. That hero's journey that I keep talking about. That's why it's so great. And
he wanted to do it in the quote-unquote right way, right? That's kind of like why he buried Black Lightning, is because he felt he could make more of a difference as Jefferson Pierce than as Black Lightning. And the struggle of that entire first season really is Kenny.
Right.
And ultimately he comes to the decision that he can't, that the community needs Black Lightning because they need a symbol of hope. He
needs both. They need both. Mm-hmm. And he does both very well. Mm-hmm. I don't think we can talk enough about Cress Williams as Black Lightning. Really a steal for the Arrowverse that I didn't even necessarily think was going to be as loved as he was. And once he got on screen, man, I think a lot of people kind of took to that character. A lot of people that I knew weren't comic book fans. They were really watching that show. I remember sometimes going to school or work and people would say to me, "Did you see Black Lightning?" My father is not a big comic book consumer of the media as a whole, but he was watching Black Lightning, just seeing what Black heroes can kind of represent and what they can kind of bring. I want to see more. So
because in all these shows that we've been talking about, representation is not really a strong suit. Besides, Luke Cage, honestly, is the standard bearer as far as Black representation. And all these other shows we talked about, not really, So Black Lightning, I think, was important for that. And important to be on cable TV, too. Right. Because Luke Cage was on Netflix. Not a lot of people have access to Netflix, even though it feels like everybody has it.
Right.
But it's still kind of premier TV.
Right.
So to see a Black superhero prospering on cable TV and being delivered in such a grounded way, I think is really important to people. Like I said, I can't speak for that, but that's just the vibe I get from people that I talk to.
No, I really love this pilot. It's, like I said, same thing with the Legends of Tomorrow pilot. This is really high on my list. A lot of that might come from not having as many as we thought. I feel like when we started today, we thought we had more pilots, but there hasn't been a crazy amount of grounded TV show pilots that aren't connected to larger movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man.
And you got one more that you want to talk about?
One more that I would have to talk about? I'll talk about Stargirl.
Oh, honestly. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. So I remember vividly, this was, I believe, a year and a half, almost 2 years ago since the Stargirl pilot. It might have been a little bit.
Because it was on DC Universe.
Right. And we'll talk about that first and foremost. Titans and Stargirl were on DC Universe, and that was a big change. That's not a streaming service that I think is known to the general public. And Titans wasn't really well received. It wasn't a show that people loved. I just think it came down to a lot of the choices they made. The acting wasn't that great in Titans. You can tell they kind of threw that show together. Maybe not last minute, but that show was kind of throwing together a lot of different components because you're dealing with a team that aren't set up unlike Legends of Tomorrow.
And a popular team, too.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that is a really... You talk about 80s comics, and especially for younger readers as well, but those kind of teen to young adult readers instead of those kid readers.
And I mean the cartoon, too.
That cartoon is legendary.
That's one of my favorite shows, period.
Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, I always needed to watch Teen Titans. I thought it was the best.
Yeah, and then for my era a little bit was Young Justice as a kid. Just seeing, again, the Teen Titans essentially on television in primetime playing off of the bigger heroes and seeing what they can provide. But Stargirl, you want to talk about a pleasant surprise. I did not expect that show. First things first, the budget of that show was much higher than I thought it was going to be. And a lot of that came from HBO and the Warner Brothers kind of putting some time into this DC universe online. You can kind of feel Titans had a bit of budget in terms of some of the suits. Like, I actually like the Robin suit from Titans, but Stargirl, I know Heart is going to be a trope from today, but as simple as that is, it's really effective. It is. And Stargirl really brought a little bit of different vibes to the DC universe. It wasn't like anything I'd seen before. It's a small town girl kind of dealing with, high school friends,
very young
new
adult,
town,
very coming of age.
Yeah, this is the DC's coming of age show, and just like Black Lightning, this is something we have never seen before.
It's very comic booky.
Oh yeah, it is, and they don't shy away from it, but it's done in a way where I don't feel overwhelmed, where I feel like I'm being bombarded with all these different kind of like references. It's very subtly done. I like that they kind of pulled from the Earth too, which is a big thing, and they dropped a lot of Easter eggs in that show. But like I said, they were fun Easter eggs. Like a fan like me can kind of cling on to and kind of see where is this leading. There's a lot of paths that they can take. The main character, her performance was great.
She's brilliant. She's so just like this ball of happiness and energy that she brings to every scene that she's in.
She's overzealous too, and I think in terms of character, that's great. I feel like a lot of times we see it a little bit in The Flash, Barry Allen being just overly eager, but then he kind of relaxes. She never kind of loses that, and a lot of that, she's a kid. A lot of that comes from the youth. The team, I love that aspect of building a new Justice Society, and then just kind of that ominous nature a little bit too of just being, you don't really know where this is going to lead, but you can feel like there's a huge secret in this small town. That small town trope plays really well in this show. And
it's surprisingly dark.
It is.
At points.
This is a theme. A lot of these pilots are darker than we remember, and a lot of that comes off not being a movie where you need to appeal to general audiences.
And a lot of it's intentional. Yeah. But Stargirl is not designed as a dark show. It starts pretty dark, though.
Yeah, it does.
Like, the Justice Society is essentially wiped out.
Yeah.
Within the first few minutes.
And you talk about villains. That's a really good way to set up your villain. That's the Infinity War approach of have your villain beat the crap out of all your heroes they wiped out, like you said, the entire Justice Society right off the bat. And you see Starman not escape, but Stripe escapes, and he's not even the hero of that group, and he's the only one. So you see the power of the Injustice Society, and it just, like I said, shows you how dark and powerful those villains are.
And it makes you want to see this girl kind of come into her own, and go up against this evil force of nature. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to the second season. It's right around the corner. It's something that I've honestly been circling like for a while. Right. Like, I'm always thinking to myself, like, when does Stargirl start? Because that show is so much fun.
Right.
And I was, much like you, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. I was not expecting that. And that's the biggest compliment I can give to this show. Just down to the filmmaking. It was surprisingly well done. I can't say it enough. I was not expecting some of the shots that they were pulling off. I believe a big part of the Injustice Society versus Justice Society fight in episode 1 was a one take. A good choice, and it worked out as well. So yeah, we can't recommend this pilot enough. And watch all these pilots, man. Give us your thoughts, how you think in the comments. If you like something that we didn't like, if you think we missed some characters that should have been highlighted, definitely a lot of stuff we didn't cover. But
like I said up top, man, that's what this is all about. There's no right or wrong to these things. I mean, we disagree plenty on some things, some big, some small. Even in this discussion about pilots, we kind of agree and disagree on things. Like what you like, man. You know what I mean? It's not that serious. There's no teams. It's just, we're all one team. Like, we're all fans of this type of stuff. So whether we agree or disagree, the discussion's always fun. And I think that's going to wrap us up for this episode. It's kind of like you said, we could do this for 2 hours, 3 hours, talking about different shows, different characters, but we got to keep it short, man.
Right.
We're not trying to bore you to death.
Yeah, just looking forward. We got Suicide Squad coming up. We have Shang Chi coming up. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. Definitely want to highlight some TV. We definitely want to highlight some non-comic book topics too. We want this to be a huge community of just fandom, whatever fandom that may be. We want everybody to be highlighted and everybody to be just have a lot of fun here.
Yeah, so next week we're going to kind of do like a Suicide Squad primer.
The Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad. That's so hard to say.
The Suicide Squad. That's a tongue twister that I didn't expect.
But yeah, we're going to kind of prime you on the first movie, the characters, not so much the Harley Quinns or Rick Flags or Captain Boomerangs, but kind of like the lesser known characters, all leading up to the Suicide Squad release. The episode should be out either the Thursday before or the Friday of the Suicide Squad releasing. So yeah, that's going to do it for us. You can email us at projectinfinitepod@gmail.com. You can like us on Facebook and give us a follow on Twitter. The handle is projectinf_pod. We'd love to establish this community. I'm really looking forward to it. I think we can bring some unique energy to what is a kind of beaten to death platform.
Yeah, I think the discussion piece is great. Just having, like I said, building that community, man, it's going to be really fun. Really excited about that. What do you got for us? Any parting words?
Not much. Just we will see you next week covering the Suicide Squad. Hopefully by next week I'll be able to pronounce that properly. What do you got for us? Any parting shots?
Yeah, just read more, write more, watch more, just enjoy life more.
God, I love it. So humble. You're like the star girl of this podcast.
Am I gonna get a new superhero moniker every time we do an episode?
I don't know. For this week, you're star girl though. Just youthful and full of energy and hopeful.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it's good, man. All right, guys. We will see you next week.